Right then, so this weekend is, of course, Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois, and this is how the fight is won. I'm going to be going through both guys' possible game plans and what they could possibly be doing coming into this fight. Starting off with Anthony Joshua, how does he win this fight? I think it's clear to see Anthony Joshua is the much bigger man than what Daniel Dubois is, and I think what Joshua wants to do here is, he kind of wants to little boy Daniel Dubois. That's what he wants to do. I think Joshua is going to use his strength quite a lot in this fight, to be fair. Very clearly the stronger man. And that's what Joshua needs to do. And, behind all that strength will be the power of Anthony Joshua. He's coming in here to knock a Daniel Dubois spark out. That's what Joshua wants to do. And to do that, he needs to be using his reach to his advantage in this fight. Joshua needs to control this fight, the early stages, especially behind his lead hand. And that's something which he's been doing a lot better ever since he's been with Ben Davison. The Otto Wallin fight, he was very good at controlling that fight behind his lead hand, putting in some decent feints and setting up his shots behind the jab. And that's the exact same thing that we saw in the fight against Francis Ngannou as well. So that's the big thing AJ needs to do. Needs to use his reach. I feel like a big thing for Anthony Joshua as well in this fight is his timing. And the right hook of Anthony Joshua must be used a lot in this fight, but Anthony Joshua needs to be clever when he throws it. He doesn't want to be spamming the right hand a lot because obviously, as we know, Daniel Dubois against Filip Hrgović especially was literally getting hit so much with that right hand, so much. But Daniel Dubois was eventually able to figure that out because that's the only thing Hrgović was really doing in the end. With AJ, he needs to, mix his shots up and be unpredictable. But the right hook will be there, will be there for him. There will be openings for that. But Joshua needs to make sure he times him at the right time, needs to make sure he catches Dubois flush with that right hook and, just mix shots up as well, add the right hook in towards the end of a few combinations instead of, just throwing that like what Hrgović did because eventually it got predictable. Joshua needs to be unpredictable here, in my opinion, because, Dubois got people in his ear who, people like Don Charles who, know the sport very bloody well, and eventually they were able to fix things up and stop Hrgović spamming that right hand on Daniel Dubois in that fight that he had. So, yeah, Joshua needs to be clever in this one, in my opinion. And, in my opinion as well, Joshua needs to use his footwork in this fight. He needs to be moving around. Don't let Dubois get too close to him. So Joshua needs to use that footwork. And that's something that we've seen improvements in Anthony Joshua's game. Big time, in my opinion. I think, since those Usyk fights, I think Joshua's footwork has improved. It has. It seemed to look pretty good against Helenius. He got himself in decent positions. Franklin, the footwork looked good as well. Wallin looked good, and Ngannou would look good. His footwork's improving, Joshua. And against Daniel Dubois, your footwork is needed. You need to be pivoting off. You need to be creating angles because Dubois doesn't really attacking angles. Dubois quite likes to come forward in straight lines and just try and bulldoze right through you. But Joshua needs to be smart with the boxing, needs to use his footwork well, in my opinion, and be unpredictable for Dubois. Or Joshua needs to be thinking a lot defensively as well as offensively, in my opinion. But yeah, Joshua needs to be putting some strong combinations together, needs to be explosive, and needs to keep Dubois at range. That's what he needs to do. Joshua needs to get that jab going to the body as well and be unpredictable with his shots up top. That's what Anthony Joshua needs to do, in my opinion. And eventually, as the fight goes on, more and more openings will eventually come for Anthony Joshua, in my opinion, and he will be able to eventually get Daniel Dubois out of there. Okay, next up, what does Daniel Dubois need to do to win this fight? I think what Daniel Dubois needs to try and do is he needs to back Anthony Joshua up and he needs to get him up against those ropes. That's what Dubois needs to do. Work the body, try and cut off the ring, back Joshua up in the corner and, really just go all at it, in my opinion. But yeah, I think, Dubois needs to be thinking more defensively, in my opinion. That's what Dubois needs to work on, and I'm sure he has. Coming into a fight against someone like Anthony Joshua, you need to think a lot more defensively smart than what you do when you fight Filip Hrgović and Jarrell Miller. You need to think more defensively smart, and I think that's what Daniel Dubois will do here. And needs to cut off that ring. Dubois must work the body against Anthony Joshua, throwing big hooks. I think, timing wise, yes, it's needed, but I think Dubois just needs to be swinging in some big shots to the body, in my opinion. Try and be unpredictable as possible with that. Swing a lot and, just be relentless, really. That's what Daniel Dubois needs to do. Put that pressure on Joshua. Dubois needs to find ways to shut down the lead-handed Joshua. That's going to be very difficult for him to do. But Dubois needs to try and find ways to shut down that lead hand of Joshua. And, as the smaller man, Dubois needs to try and use some of those things in his favor. Work the body. It will be easier for Dubois to do than it will AJ. And, just take away that lead hand. That's what Dubois needs to do. Dubois needs to get on the inside and try and, he needs to try and, get his own way. But I think Dubois needs to try and be in and out of there a bit as well, because I think Joshua is the stronger guy. And, Joshua will be able to lean on Dubois a bit and get the better of him in those clinches. So Dubois needs to be in and out of there. Don't engage too much with Joshua in those clinches, because he's going to get roughed up in them. So that's what Dubois needs to do. Don't engage much in the clinches. Get in there, get your work done, then try and get out of there. But yeah, Dubois needs to be cautious with his attacks. He needs to time himself. Because the worst possible thing Dubois can do is what he did in the early stages of the Hrgović fight, and is walking consistently to big right hands. That's what Daniel Dubois can't afford to do against someone like Anthony Joshua. So time your attacks and, think more defensively. That's what Dubois must do in this fight. And that is what I think he will do. I think he will think more defensively. He will be more defensively minded this time. He knows the threat that Joshua's got in that right hand. 100% he does. For Daniel Dubois, we need to try and see a bit more movement from him, in my opinion. And Dubois needs to try and keep moving, and Dubois needs to pace himself better as well, because in his fight against, looking back, fights like Joe Joyce, Jarrell Miller, that Joe Joyce fight, Dubois did not pace himself well whatsoever. Miller fight, Dubois didn't really he didn't pace himself well in that fight. He was tired mid-round, and it looked like, he might have been in a bit of trouble there. Against Joshua, you must pace yourself, because at times Joshua can gas out a bit as well once Joshua, has some momentum. And if Dubois can weather a storm of Anthony Joshua when Joshua is coming at him, Joshua could be tired. And, if Dubois paces himself right, you never know. He could eventually latch on to an opportunity, because Dubois has got power as well. So it's interesting, in my opinion. It is interesting. I do think, I've done my prediction video for it already. I think Joshua will end up making easy work out of Dubois. I think Dubois is pretty tailor-made for AJ. That's my prediction. Check out my whole prediction and breakdown video if you haven't already, guys. But yeah, I think Joshua will win this fight. But it's interesting. It's a very good, interesting British title fight, 100%. Anyway, I'm going to end this video here. Thanks for watching this video. Okay, I'll speak to you on a bit.